Welcome to the Fearless Marketing Show. I'm your host, Nicole Davidson, marketing mentor, marketing agency owner, course creator, mum of 4, and I'm the founder here at the Fearless Collective. I'm here to help driven women just like you to build an online business, make more money, and design a life that you absolutely love. This is going to be a little bit of an off-the-cuff episode. I really do want to talk a little bit around what's in store for 2026, a little bit around just things that I'm going to be leaving behind in 2025. And I also wanted to dive in a little bit around being quite open around finances and goals for the business, and really how you can kind of learn to take control of your finances, because there are a lot of people that are running businesses and they are struggling. They are really just at the point where they're not sure exactly what they need to be doing. And sometimes when you're in that frame of trying to set goals for the year, but you're worry about your finances, it can be really overwhelming to try and set those goals and work out what to do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in that. And this one is going to be a little bit of a hard one. It is something that I probably have kept very much to my chest, but I do think it is important that as a business owner and someone who is really sort of working with clients, that I'm quite open around certain things that I have gone through in my business. The other thing we're really going to talk about are just things that I'm going to be trying to put in place to really try and make the business and my life a little bit easier this year, and really trying to step into that CEO role that I think is going to be really important in taking that next step in my business. So let's dive on into the episode. So I'm recording this today on the 9th of January. This is my first day back. It's the first day in the recording studio, and I really wanted to run over a few things that worked really well in 2025 and a few things that I'm going to be doing in 2026. So I kind of had a very slow start to 2025. My youngest son started kindergarten, and so we had kind of my first long school holidays. In Australia, we obviously have our long break is from sort of early December to the end of January, and last year the kids actually ended up going back to school probably at the first week of February, so it was actually quite a long break, and it was my very first one without having childcare options, so I was really kind of balancing the kids over that period. So that kind of made me have a really, really slow start into 2025. And also my golden retriever Willow, she had a litter of 9 puppies. So that happened at the beginning of February too, right after the kids went to school. So I kind of had a really slow start going into the year because it was a little bit of a crazy period. I was trying to find my feet going from having daycare, which was 9 to 5. I've always worked to 9 to 5 and then sort of having to then finish and go into that 9 to 3 just shortened my day by 2 hours, and it really took me a long time to kind of try and get into the flow of trying to get as much done within the 9 to 3. I kind of had a really good routine up until then, and the routine kind of threw me out because I'd had that long 8-week break with the kids at home, where I was kind of used to having some time to myself of the morning. I would go to the gym, I would come home, I would get started, and I would dive into the day, and that worked really, really well. But for that, losing those 2 hours just really made me struggle in terms of kind of finding what worked for me. It really did take a good few months to actually do that. So if your kids are starting school next year, then I'm with you. Please be gentle on yourself. It does take some time to find a new routine and one that you're more comfortable with. I chose not to do any after school care just because I don't really need it, and I just felt like I wanted to kind of like try and spend some time with the kids. So with that in mind, that is kind of something that I'm really trying to like look at improving in 2026. I still do have just that 9 to 3 or 1 week when, because I'm separated, my kids are with me half the time and with their dad half the time. So I have 1 week where I can kind of like do longer hours, and then I have 1 week where I'm doing the 9 to 2, 3. So I am reasonably lucky in terms of that. And so I really am trying to schedule my weeks around that. The custody changed as well in 2026 so that they all were going from like the 7 and 7 50-50 care arrangement. So even like all of that, as much as like I ended up having more time, it really took me a while to kind of like get into a routine actually doing that. I find I have a much better routine when I actually have the children, because I kind of like need to be up and like doing all of the things to help them. So when I have those moments when they're with their dad, I kind of like sometimes can like feel myself shifting back into a little bit of autopilot, where I just kind of like go, oh, I can just relax, but I probably take the relaxing a little bit too far. So that really took a long time as well to get used to. So there were a lot of like changes and transitions last year as well. My eldest son started full-time work, so it was just all happening. So the goal for this year is to really try and work in a way that I can put things in place to make my life a lot easier, so that I'm not kind of like feeling pulled in all these different areas. Because what would happen is once that 3 o'clock would come, I would still have things that I would need to get done, and then I would feel like I couldn't give the kids as much attention as I wanted to do, and I just felt like I was working like non-stop all the time. So that is definitely something that I want to be looking at. That includes like taking on a VA, trying to really looking at outsourcing and bringing on maybe more of like a junior designer into the digital marketing agency that I'm running, which is Picasso Media. So I'm really trying to pull back on the amount of work that I'm doing in terms of client work. Like I'm doing pretty much all of the things at the moment. I'm, running the podcast, I'm doing my marketing. I am also then doing all of my clients' marketing. So it is busy, and I really want to try and take a step back. I really want to try and get into that CEO role, and really with the clients working on the strategy. There are things in terms of design that I don't need to be doing, particularly within like the admin side of the business, and also the design. I would map out the strategy and the way that we want it to look, and then get the designer to actually work on that as well with me. So that, because I'm much better, for me, I'm better at the strategy role than I am in terms of the design. Look, I'm good at both of those things, but the clients are paying me for the strategy. So that is something that I'm really trying to be looking at doing. And then from there, I sort of am reviewing and sort of having all of that control, quality control over like how things are going out to clients and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be like 100% stepping away from the design side of things, but I really am trying to just take that day-to-day grind away from what I'm doing. That's going to then allow me to then bring more clients in. It's going to allow me to work more closely with my clients, and then I can also spend more time doing the things that I love, which is this podcast. The things that were a little bit slow in terms of 2025. 2025 was also a very great year. It is a year that I really feel like I kind of came into myself. I'd finally had everything kind of settle in my personal life, and I was just feeling a lot more calm. I was feeling a lot more confident within my own skin, within my own self, within the business. As a mother, it was just a really good year for that overall. Particularly in the last last 6 months of the year, when I really I decided that I was going to start the podcast back up again, and that has worked really well. It has been obviously like kind of a slow start. I'm happy for this to be a slow burn. I don't need it to be like growing crazy fast or anything like that. Because I do have my website design agency. I'm happy for this kind of to grow organically without needing to like really push it. But I do notice that once I kind of like started doing the podcast, that I really did kind of like come into myself, and I really started to, it was almost like once I made that decision that that's what I was doing, everything kind of just like flowed a lot easier. The other things that worked really well for my business was I really got like knuckled down in terms of my process so that I could start bringing in more help. I kind of like was getting to the point where I really couldn't be bringing on any more clients. I had made a decision a while ago to really keep my business with pretty much just me. With a little bit of support here and there, but I didn't want to bring staff on, particularly where I was at in life with my children and my personal life. I honestly could not fathom bringing someone else into that and then trying to kind of like balance all of the things that staff bring. I also didn't really want like a staff member. I generally work from home. I don't want staff at home. And I don't particularly want to have an office at the moment either, because once you start doing that, it really kind of like puts a lot more pressure on. And for me, at this point in my life where I was at, I was really just trying to keep things simple, and I was just trying to grow my business in a really nice, slow way that I didn't overwhelm myself. And I feel like I kind of like got myself into a position where I have like a really good processes in place where I can start to bring on staff, but more just contractors rather than needing to always have staff on board. But that has helped from like many different perspectives. I have always found outsourcing quite difficult. I have just always really I'm quite fast at my job. So I would always fall into that trap of like, oh, look, I'll just do it because it's going to be quicker. By the time I explain the process to someone, I'll get it done anyway. So that's always been like a real big roadblock for me. So that was something that worked really well. I started to really map out my processes. I created Google Docs. I created a quality control document, which has a list of all of the different processes that I have in my business. And then each process has their own Google Doc. I can always actually share that if anyone would be interested. It has been very helpful within my business. The quality control doc has just like a list of everything. I can see when I've then like made changes to that. So it has like a date as to when I've made those changes. And then in all of those documents, like I really map all of the processes out. So for example, if we get a website design client coming on board, we have like a step-by-step process to onboard them. Then we have a step-by-step process to get the initial homepage design done. Then we have a process of getting feedback from the client, and we kind of like step it all out. So that's that. All of those processes included creating standard emails that go out. Obviously, we tweak them for the client based on what is going out, but overall, we standardized everything to ensure that it was just, it just worked. Even like little things like sending the client their training at the end of their website. Once their website's gone live, we would do a Zoom call with them, do the training, and then just like in terms of uploading the training, sending that out, I can pass that on to a VA. I don't need to do that. Things like, setting up the logins for the website, emailing out the client login information, all of that, adding them into the email list, adding them onto the offboarding process. All of these things I was doing for a very long time, and I made a conscious decision to really step back and stop doing that. And sorry, my dog's in the background, that's Willow. But once we kind of like really worked on doing that, that has made a huge difference to my life. I was able to bring a VA on and just slowly start handing things out to them rather than me needing to do it, because I really did make that conscious decision that anything small, anything task-based that can be repeated over and over, it is not like the best use of my time to be doing that. My best use of the time is actually talking to the clients, putting the strategy in place, and then doing the lead generation, bringing people in. But when it comes to like doing, basic admin tasks, then there is no need for me to be doing that at all. And creating all of these processes in place. Quite often I would use Vimeo, and I would record the process as well, so then they can see step by step what it is that I need to be doing, and they can see that too. It's pretty easy then to update if anything ever changes, and then that way I'm not like just consistently having to sort of sit there and write out step by step what needs to happen. So that has worked amazingly well. We did try a few other marketing strategies. We played around with Google ads and Facebook ads. I definitely found the Google ads worked better than the Facebook ads for me. But Facebook ads is definitely something that we're going to be looking at a little bit more in terms of lead generation in 2026, and also setting up some more like low-cost funnels. So low-cost funnels where have like a very small or low-cost product that we're then bringing people in to get people onto the list, but we're also then covering the cost of the ad as well. So that's something that I'm going to be focusing on in 2026. The podcast was also a really great thing to bring into the business. Not only has it helped me just in terms of my confidence, it's actually just really allowed me to kind of like really hone in on what it is that I want to help people with, and really map out everything that I need to be doing, and mapping out and even just creativity. It's helped with like coming up with heaps of different ideas, different products, different things that we can really start offering clients in 2026. Going into this year, we are really going to be focusing more on that, really focusing on the outsourcing of those tasks so that I can really focus on being a CEO in the business and getting that all up and running, and really trying to focus on creating more things that can really help you in your business as well. One of the things that I really wanted to touch on in this episode is a little bit around the finances. It is very, very important as a small business that you are across your cash flow and your business finances. I can tell you from experience that it is so important to be able to do that. It is a skill that you need to work on, and a skill that you need to develop. Now, one of the things that I have done over the last year, it was working with a business coach, and it was all really around the processes that I had in the business. And the biggest thing that I did find, and where I learnt the most, was around financial management, cash flow, all of that kind of thing. And once I really started to, it's sort of been something that I've been really looking to take control in my life over the last 2 years, and it has made a massive difference in terms of my business, how I run it, how I'm feeling about the business, everything that is flowing much more smoothly, because I have actually really actively taken control of that side of the business, instead of kind of just going with the flow and like hoping for the best, which is obviously a terrible financial decision. So now, one of the things that it is really important to be ensuring that you as a business owner is doing is keeping up with any tax obligations that you have, making sure that you know your numbers, that you know exactly how much you need to be bringing in to break even. It is so important, and there are so many people out there that are not able to understand that. They just don't even know those numbers to even begin with anything. And obviously it's like right on the 9th of January, we are like really about to start doing a lot more business planning for the year. I generally try and do it now. I'm usually feeling a little bit more high vibe in January compared to what I am at the end of December, when I'm trying to get client projects completely finished. So that's something that I'm really working hard on at the moment. Now, a lot of the business goals that we are setting, or that I'm setting for myself, is around the finances and what I want to be bringing in for the year. However, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what has happened to me over the last couple of years, and why sometimes trying to plan financial decisions or trying to plan for your 2026 can be really hard if you're under a lot of financial pressure. And there are many businesses going through that right now. You can just look around in many of the Facebook groups and you can see that across the board. There in Australia in particular, the Australian Tax Office are really cracking down on small business owners. They're trying to be, getting people to stay on top of all of their obligations. And they also have reduced just how much they are kind of like working with people in terms of like any kind of payment plan, all of that kind of thing. So it is super important that you stay on top of everything. And in Australia, I think in June or July this year, the superannuation is going to be changing so that you need to be paying staff on payday their superannuation rather than paying it quarterly that it is at the moment. So there are so many things that are happening financially across Australia right now. Now, let me just preface this. I am not a financial advisor. This is only my experience and just sort of, I guess, my knowledge around what's happening within the business arena. Make sure that you do get any kind of financial advice going off of this. But I'm going to tell you a story that is extremely common with a lot of small business owners in Australia. Now, I myself, I personally have like no debt at all, but my business, however, does have some debt that I am working with the Australian Tax Office to try and pay that down. Now, the reason that I ended up in this situation is because essentially what happened with me when I was about 3.5 years ago now, I had left a really awful relationship. I had 4 children, and all of a sudden I was by myself trying to feed 4 children and run a business and really trying to keep my head above water. And if you know anything about the Australian rental market at the moment, you will know that it is not a cheap thing to do. And so all of a sudden I had a lot more expenses that I needed to pay, and I was also doing it by myself. Now, if anyone has been through a relationship like the one that I was in, it takes a lot to actually leave that relationship or that kind of a relationship. And it is very, very common for people to go back, and it is very common for finances to be a reason that women tend to go back into those kind of relationships. Now, I was not going to go back into that. It was something that I couldn't do for both my kids and myself. It was just something that I was not prepared to go back into. I had already tried to go back and forth from this relationship multiple times. It was very on and off, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together, and over for quite some time. So when I moved out, that was it. I was doing it. But it was extremely overwhelming. It was very, very hard to do. And I kind of got myself into a position where the amount of money that I was making was enough to pay for, all of my personal expenses. I could pay, my rent. I could feed the kids. I could do all the things. I had a small amount of money left for living expenses. But what I didn't really have and the cash flow that I didn't have in the business was to keep on top of my GST and my BAS obligations. And because I didn't want to go back into that particular relationship, I kind of just knew that I was going to have to pay that back eventually, but I just needed to survive at that point in time. Now, it is really hard to talk about. It's not something that I'm overly proud of. It is definitely something that that it brings a lot of shame and embarrassment, but also on the flip side of it brings a lot of I'm quite proud that I was able to do that. But what this has meant, because for 2 years while I was getting myself out of that situation, and it wasn't just something that kind of stopped when I left the relationship, it kind of continued on. So it took me a really long time to kind of settle myself at all, like completely. So I really just had to take time, and what I needed to do at the time was to ensure that I could keep my kids, housed, fed, clothed, all of the things. And so that was kind of like the decision that I made, was that I did not stay on top of my BAS and my GST. Now, I know that I'm not the only one that does this. There are so many people who do, but it can really quickly snowball out of control if you do that. Now, I am now 3.5 years out. And so for the past 18 months, this has been something that I've been working on with a business coach to really get on top of and ensure that I had a really great understanding of my cash flow, so I knew what I needed every single week, and I could also forecast going into the future so that I knew exactly that I was going to be okay and that I'm staying on top of all of my tax obligations, as well as making enough money to cover all of my personal finances. So the good news is that by learning all of that, I was actually able to turn it around, and for the last 18 months, I have been doing this by myself. I have been covering all of my personal finances. I have been covering all of my business finances going forward. Now, but it doesn't take away the sort of like 2 to 3 years where I wasn't on top of them all the time. So as much as it's not like a huge amount of money, it is definitely, for a single parent, it is really quite, something that I really need to be working on to improve. So that is my focus for the year, is to really trying to bring in more clients so that I can try and pay that down pretty quickly, so I can just get that out of my brain and it's not stressing me out anymore. But I also do understand that the reason that I got myself into that was because I was leaving a situation that I shouldn't have been in, and I was trying to keep my family okay, and that was just like the cost of doing that. But we all have many reasons as to why we might not be keeping up with our tax and all of our obligations that we need to be doing, or it could be just as simple as you don't really know how to manage your cash flow in your business, and there are so many people who don't know that. So the biggest thing that I can really highlight to everyone running a business is to ensure that you are going into 2026 making sure that you know all of these numbers. Speak to your accountant, speak to your bookkeeper, try and work out a plan to work out all of your numbers, and really making sure that you have set things up so that you are not going to be in a position where you're like spending the money that needs to go to the tax office, like I did for a couple of years. One of the things that I have created to help with that is a cash flow template. I will pop a link in the show notes. It walks you through everything that I have put in place over the last 2 years to really get out of this particular situation that I was in. And I just thought it might be really helpful because there are so many people who just don't know how to use it, know how to do the cash flow forecast. It has helped immensely because I'm not just like getting money coming into the business and going, oh cool, like I can spend that money. I'm like, it comes in and I look forward to seeing, what things have I got coming up, so that I make sure that I'm not like taking money out that I really am going to need. And then if I see that I've got a large expense coming up, then I know that I can bring income into my business. It is seriously so important. It has absolutely changed every single part of my business, learning how to do this one skill. I used to always say to myself that I was not very good with money. I have ADHD. It was very easy for me to not learn how to do that when I was married as well. He was a financial advisor, so I kind of just like let him run all of that. So I kind of like just didn't really learn how to do all of these things. And the biggest thing now is that I'm so confident in being able to manage all of these things. Are there some stresses there that I know that I need to try and get, pay this money back? Yes, absolutely. But do I have a plan in place to be able to fix it? Then yes, I also have that too. And I'm able to do that because I have a really good understanding of just how much I need to be bringing in, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't learn this skill of cash flow forecasting. So that's a really, really important thing for anyone in business to be learning. I cannot stress that enough, because I just know that there are so many people out there that are really struggling with that kind of thing across many, many industries. So it is really important to do that. Now, one of the other things that I really quickly wanted to touch on is just some things that we as women can really hold on to, and I think it's really important for us to try and let go in 2026. And I'm going to kind of quickly rapid fire them because I don't think we need to talk about them too much, but one of the biggest things that I'm going to be letting go is comparison. In this industry in particular, it is so easy to look at where someone else is in their stage of business and look at where you are or where I am and go, oh, that's, I want to be somewhere else. And it is very important to understand that we're moving at our own pace, and that where you are now is where you're meant to be, and it is okay to be at the start of your journey and not where someone else is who is years into their business. Someone else's chapter 10 has nothing to do with chapter 3 in my life or in your life. One thing I'm letting go of is guilt about my past. Now, I just kind of spoke about that a little bit in terms of the financial side of things. That is absolutely something that I didn't think that my life would be. I guess my life definitely doesn't look the way that I expected or envisioned it to look. In that said, I am insanely happy as to where my life is, but it's definitely learning to reconcile where I really thought that I was going to be to where I am now. It's okay if your life doesn't look exactly the way that it should. I'm 43 years old. I'm only just now in such a really happy and amazing place. It has taken a very long time to get to this spot. Just in terms of my personal life, my business has always gone really well. I've always had that. That's always been pretty good. But just in terms of my personal life, there's been things that have happened. And, I'm not 100% overjoyed as to how that some of these things have turned out, but I'm letting go of that guilt, because the guilt sometimes it's not helpful. It doesn't make me feel good. Just because I look around at other people and, they might have things that it's, that's how I thought my life was going to be. I actually don't know what's happening in their life. I have no idea about any of that. If you looked at my life, you probably wouldn't have thought that the things that were going on were actually going on. So it is really, really important to try and release any guilt that you have around your life not being the way that it should be or the way that you wanted it to be. But it is really important to try and work towards your goals so that you can really start creating your life the way that you want. Other people's expectations, that is in the bin. I'm done with all of that. I do not owe anyone anything in terms of who they expect that I'm going to be, who they want me to be. Other people's expectations mean nothing to me at the moment. I'm just choosing what feels really good with me. Obviously, I'm definitely the people that I love and that are really important to me. Absolutely, then, they are someone that I'm going to consider. But in terms of anybody else and their expectations or what they think, I do not care anymore. Another thing that I'm letting go of, which is a really big one for me, is the pressure to feel like you have to do it all. The pressure to do all of it. I have spent so much of my life really trying to be everything to everyone. and to my own detriment, I will put myself into stress or overwhelm to really try and help others. And then what happens, and then I also then have all this like kind of pressure on myself to like within my business, and I want to be a really great mum, and I want to be a great partner, and I want to do all of the things, but I need to also understand that I don't need to do everything, that it's okay to ask for help. I've never really been good at asking anybody for help. I generally just try and do everything on my own, because I guess that's how it's always been for me, particularly around like my children. Asking for help is always something that just really never really went well. So it was definitely something that I kind of just like learned to just do everything myself without asking. My partner now he just kind of like generally will start helping me, and it's taken a lot to like actually let him help, to try and like learn that it's okay to let him help, or even just to ask people, anyone, friends, anyone, just for like any kind of support. I've always found that very, very hard. So that one's in the bin too. Another one that I always struggle with, now this potentially could have something to do with my ADHD and my time blindness, but overcommitting, I am terrible at that. I will say yes to things and then put myself into such a tiz because I then probably don't actually have time to do the things that I've said yes to. And it is okay to say no. No is a full word is something that I'm trying to really learn this year. I'm a people pleaser at heart, and it is something that I'm really trying to work on. So that overcommitting is also out for this year. The one other thing is the idea of being busy. I am terrible at this. If I talk to someone and they say, "How are you?" and I'm like, "I'm great, but I'm really busy." Busy is like, it doesn't mean successful. Like busy can just be like filling your business, particularly in business. Every time I say that I'm busy, like I could just be like faffing around doing something like, something that I probably shouldn't be doing, or like a brand new idea that I've all of a sudden had, and then I stopped doing the things that I should be doing. But I'm creating busyness from doing that. So that one's out as well. And I also give myself permission to not be busy and to actually rest. I do have a big habit of when I'm resting or I'm laying down, I'm just trying to like rest, but like in my head I've got all these things that I need to be doing. I'm like, oh, I should be cleaning the kitchen, or I should be, putting a load of washing on, or I should be doing this. It's actually okay to just take some time and chill out. And like we do really need that rest to really try and be successful in our business. It is so important to have downtime. Self-doubt, it is gone. I'm going to really try so hard to not be impacted by this. Quite often you'll have little things in my head saying, who are you to do this? Like, why would anyone listen to you? All of those kind of things I'm really trying hard to let go of. Sometimes they're still there, I'm not going to lie. And I think that a lot of people have that, but it is something that I'm going to work really hard to let go of in 2026 and really try and start believing in myself, because every time I have actually tried to do things, I'm generally like showing that I can do it. So that one is all going as well. Finally, perfectionism. It is in the bin, out for 2026. It should have been out a really long time. My favorite saying of all time is done is better than perfect. And that is the mantra that we're going with in 2026. I am so over trying to make things perfect. I've sat on things for so long, not putting myself out there, really trying to, hide because something's like not as perfect, or it's not as good as someone else's stuff, or it's not as good as this, or it's not, all these things that I say in my own head. I am done with that. I'm really going to be trying to put myself out there, really trying to, even if something's just, I can get it out into, to people so that I can help people. It is something that I'm really going to do, because I'm so sick of just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. So they're all my things that are going out for 2026. And I would love to hear from you. What are the things that you're getting rid of and trying to stop in 2026? Please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in getting a copy of the Cashflow forecast template, then I will pop a link in the show notes, or you can jump over to thefearlesscollective.co and it will be on there, and you can find a way to access that. I highly recommend you to do this. It is one of the best things that I have ever done for my business, and I really think that every single business owner should learn this skill. Apart from that, make sure you're following along on TikTok at The Fearless Collective, Instagram and Facebook at The Fearless Collective Co. I'm sharing fun marketing tips behind the scenes every single day. But until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep being your fearless self.